Heroines within Russian folktales had roles such as healers, mothers, and wise deceivers. Although most heroes were male, females could be considered heroic in the sense that they were virtuous donors to neighboring heroes. Russian heroines offered helpful clues or magical tools, which set the standard for how to be truly useful to others. Russian peasant women wanted to be wise and powerful leaders as reflected in their folktales too. If they knew of beauty secrets or some sort of esoteric knowledge, they would probably be hesitant to share it. Once everyone had charms and healing powers, then wise women would become obsolete. So secrecy was also important within the Russian village. Baba Yaga and Rusalki were secluded spirits of Russian folklore who understood the feminine mysteries and who represented the ideal ways of approaching womanhood. And FYI, folks, if I say Rusalki, I'm referring to the plural for Rusalka. So, it's the same spirit. Anyways, continuing. Although they were both revered as powerful females, these spirits differed in their stages of life. Rusalki are mostly young, beautiful women of the fertile springtime, whereas Baba Yaga represents death, old age, and winter. Baba Yaga's character is typically that of a wise old crone. She can be both beneficial and dangerous in folktales, but Baba Yaga was not just indiscriminately cruel. She treated each passerby as a separate individual, based on their own merit and honor. Her mastery over nature and humanity is expressed more vividly in the persona of the wise woman, good or evil, according to the manner in which she is approached. It wasn't always a bad omen to run into Baba Yaga, but in order to stay on her good side, you had to be worthy of your deeds. She knew better than the gullible youths who would happenstance upon her hut, which set the example for peasants that it was generally a good idea to respect your elders and heed their advice. Offerings may have been made by peasant girls too, an all-encompassing female divinity whose features are found in the folklore figures of the Rusalka and the witch Baba Yaga. The original feminine deity that became the Rusalka could stem from the creator Slavic goddess that embroidered, or from the trifold spinning goddesses like the Greek Fates or Scandinavian Norns. A Rusalka was originally more omnipresent and goddess-like. She had power over the seasons, weather, and even forests. Her domain was in trees as well, not just the realm of water. The evolved modern version of the Rusalki has become limited to the water element, as pagan spirits were oppressed by Christianity and demonized. She was feared by wives who didn't want to lose their husbands. Women would leave clothes out by the shore for the enticing spirits to avoid their husbands seeing the Rusalki naked, so I find that kind of amusing, that these wives are basically telling the merfolk to cover up and stay away from their husbands. The fact that Rusalki were alone and unwed might have led to the belief that they were the transmigrated souls of dead maidens who had drowned, and did not get to marry either. They encompassed the dangerous world that all maidens had to face in order to survive until womanhood. Also, Rusalki represent the threats that all wives must face to maintain their status within a happy, faithful household. Since women could not always defeat their opponents with brute strength, it was a talent to be able to beguile villains with their wits. This emphasizes the traits that were most sought out in the Russian folk village: strength, wisdom, healing, and protection. The ability to heal or harm if need be was reflected in the personalities of those who encountered Baba Yaga and were able to pass her rituals of initiation into womanhood. She offers the deserving the most potent of all magical objects from the world of women: mirrors, votive towels, scarves, rings, and balls of yarn to permit her worshippers to reach their goal of finding a mate. She presides over her mysteries of union, communion, and cannibalistic death. Vasilisa the Beautiful is portrayed as a hapless victim of cruelty within folktales. She suffers from an evil, wicked stepmother, which is a common theme in folktales. Being at the mercy of a wicked new mother was a very real prospect for a Russian peasant girl who had to start all over in a strange new household. Once they were wed, their mother-in-laws tended to have more of a say in their husband's life than they did as new brides. It is no surprise, then, that the story of Vasilisa's victory over her oppressive new mother with a flaming skull is a folktale that many girls, in similar circumstances, would have found quite entertaining. Part of why Baba Yaga was so feared is her intimidation factor. She was a ghastly sight, with a long brass nose and brass teeth to devour her victims. Cannibalistic shapeshifters are just plain scary. It has to do with the fear of the unknown. Baba Yaga is an outsider to society, hidden and secluded in a chicken-legged house that blends into the edge of a birch forest. This hidden danger reflected the innate fear that Russian peasants had of the wilderness, or of becoming lost and devoured in nature. Not to mention, her choice of decorum around her home consisted of human bones on display in a white picket fence. The death surrounding Baba Yaga is indicative of her status as a recluse. Even though she was not married, she was still useful, just as other witches strive to be in their old age. In some folktales, Baba Yaga resembled a kind old lady, but for the most part she is depicted with grotesque, horrifying features that would scare away any suitor. Her nose and breasts are iron, and her mouth is a cave-like horror full of iron teeth. She is vampiric. Human fingers float in her food. She freezes the blood of all who behold her. Russian peasant girls that were well-tamed and proper kept their hair in braids, but not Baba Yaga. She has wild hair to accent her rogue nature. The Rusalka's hair is likewise out of control. Snakes shed their skin from her Medusa-like head. She could be just as deadly and scary as Baba Yaga. Indeed, those who disrespected the Rusalka suffered the loss of their homes and livestock, with whom the Russian male peasant linked his own potency in village and field. A Rusalka could take away fertility just as much as she could grant it. The Rusalki had the power of seduction and dance to lure in men. Aside from drowning suitors, the Rusalki were role models for how young maidens wanted to be, irresistible and fertile. That is why Rusalka festivities included spring fertility rituals for young girls. Eggs and beer were offered to a Rusalka to gain her favor. Rusalki could transform into cloud-riding storm birds, or typically horses. They were known as fertility spirits, and spring is when nature starts to repropagate. She is a spinner who regulates human and animal fertility, the cycle of the seasons, the moon, and the weather. This is a common motif cross-culturally, that witches are associated with snake helpers or familiars and weather-making rituals. Overall, the wild characters of the Rusalki and Baba Yaga tell us a lot about the ideals and values strived for by female peasants in Russia. For example, Baba Yaga and Rusalki were both associated with spinning. Most ancient goddesses associated with people's destinies also spun, so there is a common theme here. Pagan values were reflected by the use of seasonal rituals, or seeking the advice of a wise woman or shaman such as Baba Yaga. It was a task only for the brave and willing. The birch tree is another connection between the Rusalka and Baba Yaga. The Rusalka has long flowing hair that she can be found combing through, but she's also found hanging out in birch trees, and she waters trees kind of like the Norns. But her preferred tree is the birch. Baba Yaga lives on the edge of the birch forest. Birch was also used when they would create a symbolic doll, make its hair all messy, and kind of dress it up like a Rusalka. So I wanted to mention the Rusalka because I thought it was great timing since spring is upon us, and in a festival now referred to as Green Week, the Rusalka was traditionally celebrated and appeased with offerings. Rusalki are considered especially dangerous in the months of May and June. So this is the month that you have to be cautious. Don't be seduced by any maidens on the shore, okay?